Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're brought to you by the Nepalese Diaspora Network.
That's right.
Our mission, really, is simple. It's to give you, the global Nepalese community, a shortcut to knowing what's really going on back home.
Yeah, we sift through all the news, the reports, the
And
data.
pull out the important stuff, the insights that actually matter, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. We're here to help you make sense of it all. The economy, social shifts, politics, everything shaping Nepal today.
And we've got quite a bit to unpack today from the last few weeks. We'll be looking at some major economic news, big investments.
Infrastructure plans, too. And then there's some fascinating new census data on social and religious trends.
Plus, critical legal updates, politics, monsoon preparedness. Oh, and a quick sports update at the end.
It's a full plate. Let's dive straight into the economy. Some really significant international support news
Oh,
recently.
absolutely. Let's start with the World Bank. Big news on May 29th. They approved a pretty large loan package, didn't they?
They did. $257 million total for two really crucial projects.
Okay, what's the breakdown?
Well, the larger part, $137 million, that's for modernizing the Rani Jamar Kaleria irrigation project. It's phase 3.
Ah, right. Down in Kailali district.
Exactly. The goal is year-round irrigation for another 17,500 hectares, which, should benefit something like 160,000 people directly.
That's huge for agriculture there. Reliable water changes everything.
Fundamentally. And the other part of the loan,
That was $120 million.
yes, $120 million for improving electricity supply reliability, basically making the power grid stronger, more stable.
How are they doing that?
Strengthening distribution networks, adding substations, I think in Koshi, Bagmati, Karnali, and Sudar provinces, plus adding real-time monitoring.
So fewer power cuts, hopefully,
Yeah.
especially outside the valley. David Sislin from the bank called power and irrigation fundamental inputs for development. Seems spot on.
Definitely. And it wasn't just those loans. On the same day, they also discussed the new 7-year country partnership framework, the CPF.
Right, a longer-term strategy. What's the focus there?
Primarily, it's about creating jobs and building resilience. Resilience to disasters, climate change, increasingly vital issues for Nepal.
Makes sense. And is there significant funding attached to this CPF?
Potentially, yes. The World Bank Group indicated they plan to make around USD 2.7 billion available over the 7 years.
$2.7 billion. Wow, that's substantial.
It is. And it's aimed at supporting jobs, connectivity, better services, and that resilience piece we mentioned.
And they highlighted immediate priorities, too, like policy reforms, tourism, digital connectivity, urban development. Seems quite comprehensive.
It covers a lot of ground. Now, moving from these big plans to specific infrastructure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Sursia Dry Port in Burganj.
Ah, yes, the main gateway, linked to the Indian Railways. It's finally getting that upgrade, isn't it, after, 20 years of talk?
Easily 20 years, yeah. It's a RS $396.9 million project, also getting World Bank loan support, and it's badly needed.
Why now? Just volume.
Pretty much. The current port is just, overwhelmed. It's about 38 hectares, can handle maybe 1,600 containers. But crate volumes have shot up. It causes serious congestion.
Slowing things down.
Exactly. Imports like sugar, fertilizer, steel, coal, and exports too. The upgrade means more warehouse space, bigger parking, proper firefighting, a new weighbridge. Essential stuff.
And you can see why when you look at the Burgunj trade figures. The first 10 months of this fiscal year, imports up almost 13%, over 506 billion rupees.
Yeah, but the exports, that's the really staggering figure. Up over 210%, reaching nearly 80 billion rupees.
210%? What's driving that?
Mainly refined soybean and sunflower oil exports. So yeah, that kind of boom really underlines why upgrading the port isn't just nice to have. It's absolutely critical.
Of course, these big projects can bring local issues. Have there been problems with land acquisition for this expansion?
There have been reports, yes. Tensions, protests, people wanting fair compensation for their land, which is understandable. It's often part of the story with large infrastructure works.
Okay, so we have these big development plans, infrastructure upgrades. How is the government planning to actually fund some of the really big mega projects?
Well, there was some criticism about the new budget not clearly identifying funding sources. So the government's response is a plan to set up something called the Alternative Development Finance Mobilization Fund, or ADFMF.
ADFMF. Okay, what's the idea behind that?
The plan is for it to have 100 billion rupees in authorized capital, 25 billion paid up. And its specific job would be to finance those large-scale projects that might struggle to get funding through the usual channels.
So it's a dedicated pool for the mega projects, even though the overall development budget is actually up this year, right? By about 55 billion rupees.
That's right. The total budget is proposed at just under 2 trillion rupees, with about 408 billion for development. This ADFMS seems aimed at ensuring the biggest projects within that allocation can actually find financing.
Got it. Now let's shift to a sector that often drives growth. Tourism, seeing positive signs there.
Definitely seeing investment. An 18% rise in star-rated hotels in just 1 year. That's 214 by mid-March next year. And bed capacity is up across the board, star and non-star hotels.
More places to stay, and more supporting businesses, too.
Yeah, 3 new casinos open, bringing the total to 29. And thousands more travel agencies, trekking agencies, tour guides registered. The whole ecosystem seems to be expanding.
And it's mentioned that NRN investment is a key factor here, something for our listeners abroad to note if they're considering investing back home.
Absolutely. Now, tourist arrivals. May saw a slight dip compared to last May, down about 4.4% to around 86,000.
Okay, a dip. But how does that compare longer term, pre-pandemic?
That's a key context. That 86,000 is still 110% of the arrivals back in May 2019. So compared to before COVID, it's still strong. And the overall trend for 2024 is good, over 1.1 million arrivals so far. The recovery looks pretty solid.
And who's coming? Top countries in May.
India, way out in front with over 28,000. Then the U.S., China, Bangladesh, and the U.K. rounding out the top 5.
Interesting mix. And connectivity is crucial for tourism. Any updates there?
Small steps. Nepal Airlines started flying from Tarragona Airport again 5 days a week, though it's only small 19-seater planes for now because of the runway length.
Right. Every connection helps out. And digitally.
ISUA launched a hotel booking feature. Apparently over 2,000 hotels nationwide are now bookable through their app. Makes planning easier for sure.
Definitely more convenient.
And just quickly, there was also a BIMSTEC meeting in Kathmandu focusing on boosting regional tourism and culture. So a regional push as well.
Okay, let's transition now from the economy to Nepal's societal and political landscape. The recent census data from 2021 had some really interesting findings on religion.
It did. It gives us a snapshot of how things are changing. The main point is Hinduism is still the largest religion, about 81.2%.
But the trend is downwards. Its share has been decreasing over time.
That's correct. Over successive censuses, the percentage identifying as Hindu has declined. Buddhism is second at 8.2%, Islam third at 5.1%.
And Islam and Christianity have seen increases.
Yes. The census shows a continuous rise in the percentage following Islam and also Christianity, which reached 1.8%. So the religious landscape is, slowly shifting.
The data also looked at geographic distribution, right? Hindus and Muslims mostly in the Terai, Buddhists more in the hills and Himalayas.
Generally, yes. But it also linked religion to certain social indicators, which revealed some disparities.
Like what?
Well, things like child marriage rates, which the data showed were highest among Muslims, and literacy rates, where Islam recorded the lowest overall figures, and particularly for female literacy.
Important data points for targeting social programs. Needs careful handling, reporting impartially what the census found.
Exactly. It highlights areas that need focus. Now, related to social issues, June 4th was the National Day on the Abolition of Caste Discrimination and Untouchability.
A really important day, drawing attention to a deeply persistent problem. What were the key messages from leaders?
President Paudel called it a crime against social, moral, and human dignity. He stressed the need for collective action.
And others, like the Dalit Commission Chair, parliamentary leaders.
They echoed that, but also emphasized a critical point. The laws are there, on paper. The real challenge is implementation and changing the underlying traditional mindsets and social stigma. It needs more than laws. It needs real social and cultural change.
A much harder task.
Much harder. And sometimes these tensions can erupt, like with that big transport strike we saw recently, June 2nd to 4th.
Right, that caused chaos. What was the actual spark for that?
It was transport entrepreneurs protesting a new rule in Gandaki province. Gandaki had allowed private cars to operate as ride-hailing vehicles, like taxis.
And the transport companies said that violated national law, undercut their business.
That was their argument, yes. And the impact on the public was pretty severe, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. People stranded everywhere. Migrant workers couldn't get home. People missed hospital appointments. Tourists were stuck. It hit businesses, too.
Yeah.
Really showed how vital transport is.
Definitely. The federal government eventually stepped in and asked Gandaki to suspend the rule.
Which they did. For a month, for talks.
Yes. But that decision itself drew flack from consumer rights groups.
How so?
They felt the government was basically caving to the transport syndicates, the monopolies, instead of standing up for the public's right to more options and potentially lower fares.
Interesting tension there. And didn't the Supreme Court also weigh in?
It did. On June 4th, it issued an interim order against transport strikes, stating transport is an essential service.
So the strike ended after Gandaki paused the rule, but the core issues, demands for unified laws, Social Security for drivers, they're still unresolved.
Pretty much. The immediate crisis passed, but the underlying problems remain on the table.
Okay, let's move to some significant legal and political updates. The Supreme Court has been quite active.
Very active. Two major decisions involving high-profile political figures. First, an order for a criminal investigation into Agni Sapkota, the CPN, Malwest Center, vice chair.
This relates to an old case, right, from the conflict era.
Yes, an alleged murder case from 2005. It's been delayed for years, so this order to proceed with a criminal investigation is seen as a major step.
And the second big ruling.
That involved ordering investigations into CBN, Unified Socialist, Chair Madhav Kumar Nepal, and former PM Babu Ram Padarai in connection with the Lalita Niwas land scam.
What was particularly noteworthy about that ruling?
The court explicitly stated that policy decisions made by ministers or even the prime minister aren't automatically immune from investigation if there's evidence they led to a loss for the state.
That could be a very important precedent for accountability.
Potentially, yes. It challenges the idea that certain high-level decisions are completely untouchable. Of course, Madhav Kumar Nepal denied involvement and called it political revenge.
So complex cases mixing legal processes with political accusations.
Very much so. On the purely political front, we're seeing parties ramp up activities. The Nepali Congress announced plans for nationwide mass gatherings.
Why? What's the stated aim?
To rally support for the current Republican system. This follows similar large events recently held by the UML and the Maoist Center.
Interesting. And Pratanda commented on this.
Yes, the Maoist chair emphasized his view that the republic wasn't achieved by any single party, but was a joint struggle of multiple parties and the people, sort of pushing back against anyone claiming sole credit.
Internal party politics also continue, like reports of divisions within the RPP.
Yes, reports of a visible rift within the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party continue to surface.
And finally, just briefly, updates on lawmakers whose status changed due to legal cases. Some suspensions lifted.
Right. Tekbadu Gurum, Lakshmi Mahatakori, Arun Kumar Chaudhary, their suspensions were lifted. Their cases involved corruption, a murder allegation, and arson, respectively.
And others lost their seats.
Yes. Rabi Lamishane, related to citizenship and cooperative fraud issues, and Dhaka Kumar Shrestha, following allegations of demanding money. It just shows the direct impact these legal situations can have.
Okay, let's shift focus one last time to preparedness and public services. Monsoon season is here.
And predictions are for above normal rainfall this year, so preparedness is key. The government says over 17,000 security personnel, police, armed police force, plus the Army are on standby.
Are they coordinating better this year? That's often been a challenge.
They're trying to. The plan is to set up integrated command posts at all levels, federal, provincial, district, local, specifically to improve that coordination during response.
How many people might be affected? Any predictions?
The NDRMA, the Disaster Management Authority, estimates it could be around 2 million people this year. They've identified Lumbini, Bagmati, Karnali, Sudurpashchim as particularly vulnerable provinces.
And this links to challenges in the cities, too, especially Kathmandu, with waste management and flooding.
Absolutely. KMC, the Kathmandu metropolitan city, is apparently racing to fix the road to the Banjaradana landfill. There's $80 million allocated reportedly. It's crucial to keep waste moving.
To avoid the pileups we saw last year.
Exactly. And they're dredging rivers like the Bagmati and Bishnumati to help prevent flooding. It highlights how vulnerable the valley is, especially with so little open space, just 0.5% for safety during disasters.
On a more positive public service note, though, some good news from Bhaktapur Hospital.
Really good news. It was judged the best hospital in Nepal, again, based on minimum service standards, scored 90 out of 100.
And this isn't the first time, is it?
Nope, it's the 4th year in a row it's been ranked #1, which is quite an achievement.
What's their secret?
Reports cite dedicated staff, good management, and importantly, being protected from outside interference or influence.
And they're still improving, adding services.
Yes, the provincial government gave them 10 million rupees for neurological services, and they're starting dialysis soon. A great example of what's possible in public healthcare.
Fantastic. Okay, finally, let's squeeze in that sports update. Football.
You know, the men's national team, they've been up in Manang doing high-altitude training.
Preparing for qualifiers. How's the team looking?
Coach Matt Ross and Captain Kieran Chemjong sounded positive. Said fitness, team unity, and belief are good. They had a friendly in Hong Kong recently, too.
And the next big match.
Against Laos, June 10th. It's part of the 2027 AFC Asian Cup qualifiers. They're hoping for a win to improve their chances. Go Gorkalas.
Absolutely. Best of luck to them. So that wraps up our deep dive for today. We've covered a lot of ground.
Huge economic investments, trade surges, the shifting social fabric shown in census data, those tricky caste discrimination issues, legal cases shaking up politics.
Monsoon worries, infrastructure challenges, but also public service successes like Bhaktapur Hospital, and yeah, even football.
Phew. Our aim, as always, is just to pull out the key threads, make sense of it for you, the global Nepalese community, so you stay connected and informed.
And before we go, just a quick mention for those of you listening in the UK, check out belayat.uk. That's belayat.uk. It's a classified site specifically for Nepalese in the UK, good for finding jobs, housing, community events, that sort of thing.
So, belayat.uk, if you're in the UK. And as you think over everything we've touched on today, maybe consider this.
What's that?
Just reflect on all these different forces at play in Nepal right now. You've got huge global investment coming in, but also these deep internal political shifts and social debates. You have the constant environmental pressures like the monsoon.
And then the aspirations of people, both inside Nepal and those living abroad, like many of you listening.
Exactly. How do all these threads, economic, social, political, environmental, personal, how do they all weave together? What kind of future are they creating for Nepal? It's definitely a complex and dynamic picture.
Something to mull over. For more details on any of these topics, resources, and to stay linked with the Nepalese Diaspora Network, please head over to nepalidiaspora.net.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for tuning in to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time with more insights.